Finito, everyone. I am NATURALISMOFYAWEH, and I'm here to bring you an important presentation today. The long-awaited Mongol invasion of America. Yes, the Mongol invasion of America has finally been finished. What is the Mongol invasion of America? Well, it's self-explanatory. Basically, when Genghis Khan was taking over the world, a part of history wasn't told. Well, at least hidden from the Americas. Modern America civilization today. Basically, Genghis Khan and his family have conquered America. Did they succeed? Partly. They created kingdoms such as the Incas and the Aztecs and various other indigenous tribes of the west coast of America, such as the Navajo, Apache, who else? The Nape. But I digress. The Mongols have invaded America, and you may say, who are the Mongols? The Mongols are the Scythians, the Tartarians, the Huns, the Turks, part of the Ottoman Empire, various of Asiatic types of peoples. And yes, the Mongols was melanated first. How did they become pale? You're gonna find out. I got a few theories, but allow us to begin this beautiful, long-awaited presentations. The Mongols that invaded America. And here we are, the Mongolians that invaded America. This lesson is very lengthy, so I'm gonna have to cut it up in 5 parts so you can get the whole lesson entirely. Now, in the first part, we're gonna be covering what exactly is the Mongolian Empire and what did they do? How did they come to be? We're also gonna be covering who is the Mongolian entirely, like by names. You know, what families, what tribes got together to create the Mongolian Empire? And we also going to learn the ethnology of the Mongolian Empire as well. Is it one group of people? Or is it many different peoples that came together as one big nation? Who knows? We're going to find out in the Mongolians that invaded America. So what we're going to do now is go over this book right here called The Mongol Empire, Its Rise and Legacy by Michael Proudhon. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is just explain exactly what is the Mongol Empire and what did they do. We're basically going to be doing that like in the same section. Both of them in the same section. So we're going to begin right here in chapter 1, Yan Tumuchin. And it says, China's enemies were as old as China herself. They were the barbarians. They were the barbarians of the north, the nomadic peoples, which with their flocks and herds moved from place to place along the margin of the Gobi Desert. So, what have you learned so far? That these enemies of China's are barbarians. They're nomadic. So they kind of don't have a specific place or where they reside. They've been moving from place to place to place, but it appears in this desert, right? And it says, as early as the 8th century BC, when China was nothing more than a loose agglomeration of feudal states, and the emperor of the Chu dynasty was not so much a ruler as a mediator between the Chinese people and their gods. The barbarians of the Gobi Desert invaded the Middle Kingdom and compelled the Son of Heaven to remove his residence far into the interior of the country. Again, the barbarians. And it says, during the 3rd century BC, the Xin dynasty unified China into a military state, and one of the Xin emperors connected up the walls. What walls? Could it be the Great Walls? Is that what they're talking about? And it says, with which the individuals, feudalist princes had endeavored to protect their domains against the barbarians. Two from one great wall nearly 2,000 miles long, which was to safeguard northern China against the nomads. And again, these nomads are the barbarians. You see, they built the wall. Yeah, the story's starting to sound familiar, don't it? And it says, within a few decades, however, the Hunnish tribes crossed over this bulwark. At length, the great emperors of the Han dynasty, who conquered the whole of Central Asia to beyond the Palmers, bringing China into contact with the Parthian realm that stretched into Asia Minor, and opened a route for silk trade with classical Rome, were able to defeat the Go-By barbarians, and to drive them back into the desert. Okay, so we got the Han dynasty, we got the Xin dynasty popping off, and they all trying to protect themselves against the barbarians. And so they basically, these barbarians was literally the cause of the silk trade being executed. Okay, so they pushed them out, and they was able to execute the silk trade with Rome. But it says, but they could be neither destroyed nor subjugated. They couldn't take these people out. They couldn't be stopped. And it says, when their mounted hordes were scattered and their flight westward, the barbarians assembled the tribes on their course. Okay? This continually growing human avalanche overran the civilized states in their path, establishing short-lived domains upon the ruins. All right, here we go. Or when they were repelled, they circumvented this state and moved further on, exciting new and ever new tribes to war. Out of the forests of the north and out of the surrounding mountains, they're pressed into the vacated areas of Mongolia and Central Asia. More and more barbarian hordes of Mongolian, Tungusian, and Turkish stock, eager for pastured land and eager for booty. Okay, so you see right here, Mongolian, Tungusian, and Turkish stock. This is the Mongol Empire, right? There's more people that is under this empire, but like I said, you're gonna learn through this class that all these people conquer the world, including the Americas. They ain't just came here and said, hey, we found new land and now let's settle, as if there was no one here. But like I said, you're gonna see. Hungry for the war and they rapidly refilled the places from which other had been expelled. And it says, ever on the watch for the first signs of weaknesses in their settled neighbors. Meanwhile, they carried on unceasing petty warfare among themselves for grazing grounds, livestock, and the pitiful possessions of the nomads. Things went on like this for century after century during 1,000 years. The names and the races changed, but it was always the same picture. So yes, they kept changing their name. They kept jacking shit from each other, but they was still the same people. Okay? It says these nomads could not write. Sound familiar to a certain group of people today? Right? Native Americans. These nomads could not write. The only record of their doings being kept by oral tradition and tales told around campfires. Sound of freaking Suspicious, don't it? Don't that sound suspicious? Thus, such successive generation learned about the warlike doings of its ancestors, and a Mongol of noble blood knew his lineage for at least 7 generations back. Okay, Yesukai Bagator, what's it say? Bagator. Indeed, Yasukai the Strong could trace his genealogy for 7 generations. I guess this is of a Mongol stock. His remotest ancestor, 3 and 20 generations back, god dang, had been Bertie Chino. Grey Wolf. Wow, Grey Wolf. Ain't that a Native American title right there? A prince from the distant land of Tibet, whose wife had been named Morgoa, or Radiant Doe. Yesukai's grandfather was Kubal Khan, who ruled all the Yaka Mongols, and had even ventured to tweak the beard of the mighty Qin emperor far away to the southeast. Okay? But then the Qin emperor, protected by a wall on which 6 horsemen could ride abreast, a wall without end, entered into an alliance with hostile tribes of Tartars that still the Mongolians, the Tartars, the Tartarians, the Turks, the Tarts, you know what I'm saying, who pastured their herds eastward and southeastward of the Mongols between the Lake Pirnor and the Khingan, the Chingan Mountains. Through Kubal Khan killed many of the Chinese soldiers and many of the Tartars. By the time when he died of prison, the power of the Mongols had been broken. His son Kutul, Yasukai's uncle and the last Khan of the Mongols, led many famous campaigns against the enemy. All right. So like I said, all of these are still the same people. These are fractions of the same Mongol people, right? But again, they have many different names. They keep jacking one another. They keep stealing from one another. They keep waging war with one another, but they still of the Mongol Empire. And what I read right there was like towards the end of the Mongol Empire, the last Khan. All right. So let's continue to the next. But these were numerous as the sands of the desert, and the Tartars grew stronger and stronger. Soon many of the tribes of these steppes came to call themselves Tartars. Again, they kept changing their name over and over and over again, so that the glory of this name might attach them, and the name of the Mongols pass into oblivion. Their various tribes were called after their leaders. You see, when Yesukai's 3 brothers and many of his cousins and relatives chose him Bagator of their Kuet Borjingin tribe, the gray-eyed Kuets. There were still as many as 40,000 tents under his command. So the many commanders of the Qin Empire sent envoys to him, asking him to ally himself with them against the Tartar tribes who had grown too strong. He defeated the Tartars, took their chieftain Tumuchin prisoner and laden with booty, and returned to his camp, which was on the Lugan Baldok, water parting besides the upper reaches of the river Onan, to find that his favorite wife Yulun Iki, Mother Cloud, had given birth to a son. According to ancient custom, to the name of the person must commemorate the most important incident at the time of his birth, and for this reason Yasukai called his firstborn Tumuchin. At birth, the infant held in his little clenched fist a lump of clotted blood that looked like a red jewel. And it says, and the shaman prophesies that Tumuchin will become a mighty warrior. Right? So you see how this joint worked. The child Tumuchin was in due course to be the greatest conqueror in history, Genghis Khan. He established an empire which stretched from the Mediterranean to the Pacific, from the Siberian Taiga to the Himalayas, the mightiest realm that ever existed in the world. They forgot about the Americas because it's stretched over there too. His people and his descendants honor him as divine being Sutu Bagdo, the course whose life naturally corresponded to the heavenly 12-year periods of the Mongolian calendar. And since Genghis Khan died in the year 1227, which was known as Gach, the year of pig, the chronicles declared that his birth had taken place in the year of Gach, 1155, so that his life lasted exactly 612 years. All right. But according to the Chinese analyst, the birth occurred in Morin, the year of the house, 1162. All right. So we're going to go on to the next page. Many tribes lived in the steppes of Mongolia, whose only southern boundary was the Great Wall of China. Immediately to the north of the wall dwelt the Onguts, and between the Onguts and the Tartars, the Jungirats. Okay, so they're just letting you know the geological area of where all these people live. Like I said, all these people are Mongoloid. They're the Mongoloid, Mongolian, Mongol Empire type people. Okay. Here dwelt the Jungirats. Dai Shichin's tribe was rich and powerful. Yesukais knew that the Chinese were wont to call the Onguts and the Jungirats white Tartars, in contradistinction to the black Tartars. And again, the black Tartars. I told you that the Mongolian and the Mongol Empire were melanated people. Now, there's a theory about where these pale ones came from. Some said the caves, some said they were wild men, some said that was created. There's a lot of theories. I have my own theory myself, but we're going to dive into that in another lesson. Well, let's get back to it. The name they gave to the other Mongolian tribes. He saw that their felt tents were more richly adorned than those of his own people. Damn, hating ass dude. Their clothing was finer and costlier. Their weapons were more skillfully ornamented. As for Bortia, she was handsome and well built. That's weird. I never heard anybody call a woman handsome. But I digress. Daishin Chen was also delighted with young Tumuchin. The youngster rode like a grown-up, knew nothing of fatigue, was taller for his age, adorate and vigorous. The cat-like eyes that shone out of the olive-tinted visage were shrewd and took note of all that was going on all around. Nothing seemed to escape them. Yusikai gave Dai Shi-Chen his splendid settled horse, accepted gifts in return, and it was agreed that Tumuchin was to stay here until the two hordes should send their livestock to pasture together, a sign that an alliance was to be cemented. Okay, so you already see that Tumuchin is Genghis Khan, right? And you're seeing the culture, the traditions on how two tribes come together, and you've seen that there is white Tartars and black Tartars, black Mongolians and white Mongolians. You see, but we all know that the original starts from the black. But I digress. Let's go on to the next page, all right? Against the northern side of the marquee upon a dais stood the throne. On the throne sat Genghis Khan, with his principal wife, Botia. Somewhat lower on the right, his sons, his other relatives, and in various grades, the Orlok and the chieftains were seated. To the left, on Botia's side, sat his other wives, his mother and his daughter, and then the wives of his guests. in front of Tumuchin lay great heaps of golden and silverware, fairs, brocades, and silks. These he gave away in abundance. No Mongol this day entered the tent of his ruler without being richly rewarded. Man. Hey, Genghis Khan was that guy, wasn't he? And I'm learning with y'all too. I didn't know a lot about the Mongolian Empire, but after I did my studies, it's good to just get a little surface level of what they did and what this kingdom was, and and how Genghis Khan treated his people, his fellow comrades, and his family, and his, his whole empire. So everybody was rich. Everybody was, boy, he ain't had no homelessness in his empire. That's crazy, ain't it? But he conquered the world, so why not everybody be rich, right? Genghis was in a great settle, and his whole people shared his pleasure and his strength. He was Situ Bogdo, the God sent. That sounds like some Jesus Christ stuff. But look at him. Who had rised, not his own tribe alone, but all the 400,000 Mongols above every other people, having proclaimed this race of the Bide. With this distinguished name, he arose in the breast of the nomads, a new feeling, national pride. No Mongol any longer was to be a slave or a servant, his sole duty being to bear arms. All the peoples who dwell in the felt tents considered themselves to be promoted in rank by becoming Genghis subjects. Thenceforth, to whatever tribe they belonged, they styled themselves Mongols. This name became a bond of union, a force that carried them like a hurricane across 100 degrees of longitude and gave them power over the whole earth, which they owned. Told y'all. And don't this sound like what melanated people was doing? I'm not saying it's not us. It's not us, but man, this should be our motto. This should be our motto right here. No melanated being any longer has to be a slave or a servant. Our sole duty being to bear arms. All the peoples who dwell in the felt tents consider themselves to be promoted in rank by becoming nobody's subject. That should be our motto right there. That's what we should do. Right? It says, we're finna jump on down. As far as the hoof of the Mongolian horse could tread. 40 years later, Giovanni, what's that say? Piano Carpini, the Franciscan friar, whom Pope Innocent, I think that's the fourth, sent his legate to the court of Genghis Khan's grandson, reported. They despise all who lie within the bounds of their nation. However, distinguished they may be. Thus, at the imperial court, the court of the great Khan, we saw the Grand Duke of Russia, the son of the King of Georgia, numerous sultans, and other great lords, but to none of them was paid any particular respect or consideration. Nay, rather the Tartars, Mongols, appointed to attend on them, who are often men of inferior rank, appear unconcernedly before these monarchs, and took the better seats, so that the monarchs often had to sit behind the backs of the attendants. Okay? So you see how powerful these people was, right? They looked at all these other people as inferior to them. Do not the Native Americans play that role today? Come on now, if you've been on TikTok, you know how these natives be. Tartar. It's giving Tartar, ain't it? It's giving Tartar, ain't it? But it says, but no one was yet new to what a plenitude of power, this to Bagdo, this Genghis Khan, would lead his race. The Mongols believed themselves to have already reached the goal of their desires. Genghis' realm stretched 1,000 miles from east to west, all the way from the Khingan Mountains to the Altai Range, and more than 600 miles from north to south, from Lake Baikal to the southern marge of the Gobi Desert. Okay? So you see how powerful Genghis Khan was, and you see what the Mongolian Empire was about and who they was, right? But we still gonna dive more into this subject, right? We're gonna dive more into the subject. So let's go to the next page. Comprising a population of more than 2 million obeyed his slightest word. This motherfucker was him. He was the GOAT, bro. Genghis Khan was the GOAT, bro. Genghis Khan was the GOAT. If anybody can learn anything from anyone, it's motherfucking Genghis. You hear me? My fellow tribe, fellow gang. That's how I need to be. Bring that back. But switch it up. Take our shit back. Real talk. And it says the men now in his tent were happy to be his chosen followers. Man, bro. Of course you're gonna be happy to be his follower. Man, you rich. Bro, bro. I don't know if I'm just excited for them or what. I don't know if I'm excited for the invaders, but the way how this motherfucking move, how boom, how you conquer and shit, and you got your fellow people happy to rule up on you, and they getting rich with you too, man. Like everybody eating. Man, come on, man. I ain't gonna lie. The Mongolian Empire fire now. What they talking about? They started from the trenches. They started with nothing. They was just walking around. All of a sudden, they end up glorious. I'm just saying. Now we on this next chapter, training of the Mongols. Genghis Khan's dominions were now bounded by 3 great realms. To the east and southeast lay, behind the Great Wall, the mighty realm of the Khins. To the south was the Tungan, state of the Hasaya. I'm probably saying that wrong. You know, this Japanese, Mongol, Chinese, yada yada yada. You know that stuff. And it says to the west, they're stretched right across the Primers, the roof of the world, whose mountains thrust upward into the sky. The Central Asiatic country of Kara Chataya, something like that. In each of these 3 regions, the general staff already had its spies for the Kakan, one of the most intelligent concerning them. His keeper of the seal, the Tatungo, the Uyghur, who had been born in one of the states tributary to the Kara Kata. I'm sorry the way I'm reading this stuff, but this is, like I said, this Chinese, Japanese, Mongol type of language, words. And was also able to give him much useful information. So you seeing how vast the land was and everything like that is great. And now we finna head to Brenica. All right, the Mongol Empire, historical empire, Asia. Okay, and this was September. It been updated. Is September 2nd, 2023. For the Pan-Africans in the back, it's not updated. You know how that is. They want you to update history like a computer software. Something that took place a long time ago. You could update history, so you could get a fucking time machine, hop back and say, okay, let's update this shit. Come on, man. If you updating history, that means you're lying about history. Let's just be real. Unless you found something that's contrary to that history, so you can add to it. But if you just keep on tweaking and updating. What you say? Updating? That means you're fucking lying. Okay, but here we go. It says the Mongol Empire founded by Genghis Khan in 1206, originated from the Mongol heartland of the steppe of Central Asia. By the late 13th century, it spanned from the Pacific Ocean in the east to the Danube River and the shores of the Persian Gulf in the west. At its peak, it covered some 9 million square miles, 23 million square kilometers. It says of territory, making it the largest contiguous land empire in world history. Now look how vast this land is. It also stretched to America. I don't know why they keep making it seem like it didn't stretch to America, but it stretched to America. Okay, so let's go to the next page real quick. It says the origin and growth. It says the year 1206 when Temujin, son of Yesugi, which is Yesukai, was selected Genghis Khan of the Federation of Tribes on the banks of the Onun River, must be regarded as the beginning of the Mongol Empire. This federation not only consisted of Mongols in the proper sense, that is, Mongol-speaking tribes, but also other Turks tribes. I'm telling you who's all the Mongols. It says before 1206, Genghis Khan was but only the tribal leaders fighting for supremacy in the steppe regions south and southeast of Lake Baikal. His victories over the current, I believe I said it right, then the Nayman Turks, however, gave him an undisputed authority over the whole of what is now Mongolia. A series of campaigns, some of them carried out simultaneously, followed. Next page. Initial conquest. The first attack, 1205 through 1209, was directed against the Tangut kingdom of Hasia, something like that. What's that say? Shia or something like that. I mean Sua. I don't know how to say that, but it says a northwestern border state of China. It ended in a declaration of allegiance by the Su. I'm just gonna say the Su King, Sua King. And it says a subsequent campaign was aimed at North China, which at that time was ruled by the Tungusic Jin dynasty. The fall of Beijing in 1215 marked the loss of all the territory north of the Huanghe Yellow River to the Mongols. During the following years, the Jin Empire was rounded to the role of the buffer state between the Mongols in the north and the Chinese Song Empire in the south. Other campaigns were launched against Central Asia. In 1218, the Chitao state in East Turkestan was absorbed into the empire. Okay, we see now. Look how they living. Look how they was living. See, these rock houses look like they're living in caves or some other stuff. But here we go. It says the assassination of Muslim subjects of Genghis Khan by the, I'm not even going to try to butcher that, and Atwar lead to the war with the Sultanate of Khawarizm. Okay, so that's the Khawarizmians. The Kaiva. What's it gonna call them? The Kaiva. And East Turkestan. And it says Bukhara and Samarkand, and the capital of Urgich, were taken and sacked by Mongol armies in 1220 through 1221. And it says advanced troops after crossing the Caucasus even penetrated into the southern Russia and raided cities of Crimea. 1223. Once prosperous region of the Khawarizm suffered for centuries from the effects of the Mongol invasion, which brought about not only the destruction of the prosperous towns, but also the disintegration of the irrigation system on which the agriculture of these parts depended. Sorry, I had to swallow some spit right there. And it says a similar destructive campaign was launched against the Sua in 1226 through 27. And it says because the Su king had refused to assist the Mongols in their expedition against the Kharazim, the death of Genghis Khan during the campaign 1227 increased the vindictiveness of the Mongols. The Sia culture, a mixture of Chinese and Tibet elements with Buddhism as the state religion, was virtually annihilated. So you see what you see the campaign of the Mongolian Empire, right? The conquests, they was ruthless, all which ultimately end in 1227 with Genghis Khan, but we know his grandchildren, which succeeded him, did far better. But you see how this going, right? So let's get in 1227, the Mongol dominion stretched over the vast regions between the Caspian and the China Seas, bordering the north on the sparsely populated forest belt in Siberia, and the south of the Pamirs in Tibet and central plains of China. The empire contained a multitude of different peoples, religions, and civilization, and it's only natural to seek the motivating force behind this unparalleled expansion. And it says certainly the traditional antagonism between the pastoral nomadic steppe dwellers and settled agricultural civilization has to be taken into account. Okay, raised by nomads. Again, the nomads is the Mongols, the barbarian tribes, the steppe dwellers. All these people, they are the Mongol Empire, the Mongols, all right? And again, the Mongols is a combination of many different tribes, people. Okay, and it says had always occurred from time to time wherever powerful nomadic tribes live in a proximity of settled populations, but they had not usually taken on the dimensions of a bid for world hegemony and domination, as in the case of Genghis Khan's invasions. The idea of heavily mission to rule the world was certainly present in Genghis Khan's own mind and in the minds of many of his successors. But the ideological imperialism had no foundation in nomadic society as such. It was most probably due to influences from China, where the one world, one ruler ideology had a long tradition. The creation of nomad empires in the steppes and in the attempts to extend their rule over the more settled parts of Central Asia and finally over the whole known world may also have been influenced by the desires to control the routes of intercontinental land trade. The desire for plunder also cannot be ignored, and it was certainly not by accident that the first attacks by nomad federations were usually directed against those states which benefited from the control of trade routes in Central Asia, such as the famous Silk Road. All right, continuing where I left off from. It's organization of Genghis Khan Empire. During the early stages of the Mongol supremacy, the empire established by Genghis absorbed civilizations in which a strong, ununified, and well-organized state power had developed. The social organization of the Mongols was, however, characterized by pastoralism and a decentralized patrilineal system of clans. The antagonism existed between a society of these nature and subjugated advanced civilizations, between a relatively small number of foreign conquerors and a numerical strong conquered population. Sorry, I looked at the wrong word. And it says the early phases of conquest, the Mongols usually attempted to impose the social structure of the steppes upon their new subjects. It is customary for the Mongols to enslave a conquered tribe and to present whole communities to distinguish military leaders as a source of personal appanage. These slaves became sooner or later an integral part of the conquering tribe. In the conquered areas, a similar procedure was adopted. Groups of the settled population, usually those living in certain territory, became the personal property of the Mongol military leaders, who exploited the local economic forces as they liked. No use was made of existing state machinery or bureaucracy, and the former political divisions were entirely disregarded. Nor was there any attempt to organize the numerous local Mongol leaders who enjoyed a high degree of independence from the court of the Khans. Ruthless exploitation, under strong military pressure was therefore a characteristic of the early phase of the Mongol domination, which may be said to have lasted until about 1234, some 7 years after Genghis Khan's death. All right, let's continue. Genghis Khan, like other chieftains, owned no land. Like I showed you earlier, they were nomadic people. They were just traveling any and everywhere, and they were just conquering other Mongol tribes and try to basically take them in as slaves. Then they became basically leaders in the army. They joined the military, things like that. You see that these were just conquering people, nomads, just like the Native Americans, which is a nomadic people as well. Gotta tie that together. And it says that over which had the tentative sovereignty was bleak, held by the Yablonnovi range. Yablonnovi that's some Russian word. Range to the west, the Khingan Mountains to the east, and to the south by the Gobi Desert. The winters were hard, the cold shivering all life and comfort. Only the Antarctic is colder than the northern eastern Siberia, the plains and uplands of which lie to the north of the Mongolian territories. Long seasons of snow and darkness stretched down from the near polar fastness, and they were getting larger and harder. This was the 13th century. Then the globe's ice caps reached towards the temperature zones, and once fertile fields disappeared under glaciers or hardened into permafrost. And it says in Greenland, the changed conditions were destroying the last remaining remnants of the Viking settlements. Here, just south of the latitude 60 degrees north, which cuts through the tip of Greenland, the weather was bringing its own hardships. Now, how many times we talked about the Ice Age, right? Now they're talking about the Ice Age during the 13th century. Now that's very interesting, right? So what if, again, they was trying to escape the cold by coming here, but they brought their traditions, they brought their armies, they brought their fleets. I think America was already known, and it was already being conquered by the Mongols. They have already kind of fallen already. And then you got these Europeans coming over here that's reaping havoc at the same time. So you can see all of this basically taking place, right? But I am jumping the gun. I would just basically wanted to speak on it to, you know what I'm saying? Just to put it in your mind of what the hell's going on, okay? So here we go. And it says, in summer, however, the Eurasian landmass heats swiftly. Now as then, and where there are no rivers, the soil dries and crumbles. All vegetation wilts. And it says, this was no land for archaeoturalists to develop their skills. To the north were rivers to the north was rivers hissed through the valleys, and reverence forests of lurch, breech, fir, and aspen welcomed the hunter, not the farmer. Between forest and desert lies the grass ocean of steepy gleaming under snow in winter, flickering into brightness of flowers in the spring, then slowly burning into the dawn. The cocky, yellow and pale brown shades of last summer. Across the plains and woodlands, through the whiplash winds of the desert, the traveling peoples, who was that, of these lands made their constant way. The Kurits, the Merkits, the Naamans from the Atau Mountains, Tartars from the Khingan Range, and the many lesser tribes of the region. Among these stood Mongols, grazing the valleys of the river Anan and the river Kirulin, unconsidered and unheard of. Okay? It says, from these unpromising lands, previous invaders had spread terror both east and west as they sought to establish themselves in more amenable surroundings or learn to exploit the hardness and the warrior skills their bleak environment had taught them. It is against a people centered here. The Huangnu, or Northern Horse barbarians, the Chinese word for them, indicative of their method and manner of warfare, that the Emperor Si Hung Tai had ordered the protection of that complex and Superman bulwark, the Great Wall. Okay, it was from here that some 5 centuries later, that were perhaps the same people, the ferocious nomads we called the Huns, nomads, Mongols, nomads, burst westward in a conquering drive the wood pummel Europe into a new shape and a new era. It was the force they exerted that finally toppled Rome from its 8 centuries of supremacy. It was from here to that the Turks, again, which is Mongols, again perhaps descend from the Huangnu, had set out the long. Let's go to the next page. All right, family, we're going to be continuing on the next page, and this right here looks like a map of the Mongolian Empire, its territory, and also the other places that they conquered as well. Again, just letting you know, everybody don't know who the Mongolian Empire is, and everybody don't know what they have done. We only know about Genghis Khan, so it's good that we're learning a little bit about their culture, their war tactics, the tribes that classed the Mongolian Empire, things like that, okay? So, just letting you know, heck, you learning, we all learning. So, let's go on ahead and continue. And it says the intermediate battering, they were to give the world those 1,000 years of respective warfare from the 6th century to the 16th century. So you see how long this Mongolian war was taking place, from the 6th century to the 16th century. We talk about all the way to the Atlantic slave trade. All right, so they were still popping off when the Europeans was running. So why the Europeans was really running? Maybe because of these Mongols. And when it came to the new lands, I'm jumping the gun, they seen the Mongols there too, and they was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? Right? And they said, here we go. And it says that would see its climax, the fall of Rome eastern capital, Byzantium. It says the Mongols, however, were no more than distant cousins to success. They lead lives which, though inerrate, were on the whole settled unsurprising. And it says they had seen others set off during the past 10 centuries, moving westward along the grasslands to disappear into the fitful legend and forgetfulness over the inscrutable horizons that set such wide limits to their world. They themselves had continued perhaps for 2,000 years the annual round of their lives, wintering in the north for water or in the south for warmth, moving in the spring to their accustomed summer pastures. Yo, don't this sound like the hunters and gatherers, the Native Americans, the the nomads, the Navajos, the Apache, the Inuits? Don't that sound like what they do? I mean, you gotta compare culture, right? Right. So why did they leave Mongolia? To escape the cold, right? That was just a theory of what the scientific world say today, but we know what these people are really doing. All right, let's go. It says, moving in the spring to their accustomed summer pastures, the uplands grass where the heat was fierce, or the lushers, meadows flaking from indistinguishable streams. These pastures were known, marked out by long usage, returned to year after year. And it says, when they traveled, they took down the smaller tents, mounted the larger, completed on ox carts. Sometimes these were vast wagons 20 feet wide, with wheels taller than a man, drawn by 2 lines of 11 beasts, each the 22 straining at the traces. The vast cupola of the tent is top half onion shaped. It's top half onion shaped. Yeah, that is like the Native American stuff. Riding behind them like some tethered balloon. Okay, and it says, when the tents were set down, they were quickly made serviceable, divided into 2, with one section for the woman and the skills of the kitchen, the other for visitors and friendship. The central fire sending a soft smoke up through the vent in the roof above. Okay, so it's describing how their wagons was like tent-like, onion-shaped, like something similar to what the Native Americans was doing, right? I don't know about the balloon thing, but that sound very similar to the hunters and gatherers. So we're continuing down, and it says, in all this, the Mongols were little different from the tribes who shared these territories. Again, I told you that the Mongol civilization, the Mongol Empire, is a class of different Asiatic people into one group, but they still comprise of the Mongoloid or the Mongol peoples, right? Some look a little different, but they still are Mongoloid. And it says they learned to survive that imperative overriding all generosity, all some squeamishness. I think I said it right. And it says they would eat mice. Whoa! They would eat mice, dead animals found besides the trail. Wait a minute. Pause. No. That's it, man. If y'all was doing that, that's crazy, y'all. That's crazy. Even their own dogs or cats. Oh my God. Boy, this sound like the Asian buffet, Panda Express, China Kitchen. Cats and dogs, man. Found on the side of the road. Oh no. I can imagine the diseases that was raging through the Mongol Empire. But it says, when times were hard enough, and times often were, if a man found himself alone and desperate, the snow, a desert, its flurries like curtains hiding him from safety, he would open one of his horse's veins and drink the blood. But when make sure he sealed the wound when he had finished. Oh no, that's a savage. It says, for his horse was his key to the recesses for the steppe, the single factor that stood between him and impoverished immobility. It was no more than pony size, this horse of his, but deep chested, heavily boned and muscled, frequently evil tempered. It was of an endless courage, able to subsist summer and winter on what it wrenched from the often inhospitable earth. So basically, he was going through it. Basically, they was going through it. I guess they had to do this, but man, you surrounded by the earth, and you're. This is the way, the Mongol way. Oh no, oh no. It offered him the freedom of his world. As a result, Mongol and horse became a single centaur-like entity. Babies rode before they could stand, and it says when they grew up, sitting in the saddle was probably more natural to them than walking. While riding, Mongols ate, slept, drank, argued, and fought. As a result, horses became a symbol of prestige, marking out perhaps even more than women did the rich. So they valued the horses more than women. Okay. No wonder the Mongol people were so drawn to nature, blessing the land and all that stuff. You know how the Native American is. And the symbol of a Native American is an eagle or a horse. Come on now. And it says the powerful. And it says conversely, stealing them was among the most heinous crimes a Mongol could commit. God dang, y'all. All right, we're going to continue on the next paragraph. It says the people lived largely on what they owned, grew, hunted, and found. From their cattle, sheep, and goats, they had the wool, furs, and hides that clothed and armored them. From the milk of mares and cows, they made their curds, their cheese, their pale and harsh, kumis. And it says the cereals they collected or occasionally grew were made into gruel or pounded into flour. And then it says when they killed or hunted, they ate well. And it says what they did not need at once, they dried or smoked. Yep. They manufactured little or nothing. However, weapons, jewelry, fabrics collated to them from markets in Samarkand and Bukhara are trickled northwestwards from the established civilization from behind the Great Wall of China. And it says they were dirty, unclothed, loud-mouthed, and foul-smelling. Okay. They were quarrelsome. And it says the lands they moved through were littered with the remains and the memories of thousands pointless battles. I can imagine what those battles was about. Who was more dirtier or some shit. Hey, it's dumb. It's crazy. What? It's culture. Culture. That's all. 100,000 pre-nicotine disputes. The rise of one brought the jealousy of another. The lush grazing of a rich clan brought down on it the retribution of the struggling. The dumb summation of a flock by winter would be followed in the spring by the decimation of those whose flocks had survived. So it's crazy. I think that's all we need to know about that culture and who the Mongols is. I think that's all we really need to know. I'm gonna skim through this real quick and I'm gonna see if there's something else of importance that I need to read real quick. Okay? Hey, I think we learned everything that we need to know about the Mongol Empire. Now, what we're going to move to now is the ethnology of the Mongols. What basically is the indication or the evidence to prove that one have came from the Mongols? Ethnology. So let's tap into ethnology and let's learn a little bit about it. Okay? So we're going to go to this book right here. But first, let us look at what the definition of ethnology means. It is the study of characteristics of different peoples, the differences in relationships between them. All right, so you see right here, this is what ethnology means. And now we're going to this book right here, Ethnology in two parts, Fundamental Ethnical Problems and the Primary Ethnical Groups, by A.H. Keene, FRGS. And this is from the late Vice Pres, which was Anthropology Institute. And it says members of Italian and Washington Anthropology Societies. And it's it's located in Cambridge at the University Press, 1896. This right here is in the same book, the session that's dealing with the Mongol ethnology. We're going to take it to the top of the first page right here. It says, taken as a whole, the typical Mongol differs from the other divisions mainly in the general yellowish color of the skin, the broad flat features, with very prominent anteriorly projecting cheekbones, small mesorine nose and mesogenthous jaws, and brachycephalous head, slightly developed superciliary ridges and a galbilla, somewhat sunken eyes with narrow almond shaped aperture between the lids, a vertical fold of skin over the inner canthus, an outer angle slightly elevated. And then it says the applique eye with its third lid is highly characteristic trait. And it says constant in the more typical groups and exclusively found in the Mongol divisions. So they're basically giving you the phenotype. You know what I'm saying? The eyes, the nose, all of that. What is the indication of what a Mongol is? Okay? And it says the black, lank, and rather coarse hair, almost if not quite circular and transverse section. It's also a constant but not an exclusive character, being equally common to the American division and forming the most marked physical link between Homo mongolicus and Homo americanus. It seems to justify the assumption of an original generalized Mongolo-American type, from which the American branched off at an earlier date prior to later differentiations, as represented in the family tree of the Hominidae. All right. Next paragraph. After the separation, the parent stem continued to spread over a great part of the continent, reaching its extreme eastern limits probably in the Paleolithic age, passing later southwards into Malaysia and penetrating in Neolithic times into Europe, but apparently not into Africa. The earlier expansion of the Mongol race, and of which there is a monumental evidence of Mesopotamia and abundant ethical proof in Indochina and the Amar Basin, brought about fresh groupings and intermingling not only with the kindred tribes, but also the Caucasian peoples, who had already in remote times spread from their primeval homes of North Africa and Europe eastwards to Japan and southeastwards into India and Indochina, and thence to Malaysia, Australasia, Polynesia. Thus arose not only on the confines, but in the very heart of the Mongol domain, these Mongoloid and Caucasoid aberrant groups, such as the Malaysian Indonesians and the Mesopotamian Akkadians, the Dravidians of the Indian Peninsula, the Ugarian Finns, and the Turkey peoples, wrongly called Tartars, all of whom are found fully constituted long, we're going to go on to the next page, long before the dawn of history, but whose ethnical infinities have remained an unsolved problems. But speaking broadly, it may be confidently said that the explanation of these ethnical puzzles will be found in the frank recognition of a Mongolithic and Caucasic elements interpreting each other at various points of their respective territories from the earliest times. In the presence of distinctively fair types and regular European features in Manchuria, Korea, Yezu, Turkestan, parts of Siberia, and Malaysia, the assumption must be abandoned that these regions have always been exclusive appanage of the yellow race. In the chapter devoted to the Caucasian division, this important subject will have to be dealt with more fully. Meanwhile, it will suffice here to point out that in the accompanying family tree of the Mongolic division, all these aberrant groups find a place which can be shown to belong fundamentally to the Mongol stock. Here, language becomes an important factor to which appeal may be made in doubtful cases. While historic evidence is available in determining the constitutes of Magyars, Bulgars, Uzbeks, and some other latter groupings, let's continue on the next page. Here, as in the Nego tree, two great limbs are seen to branch off from the parent stem nearly simultaneously. The Mongolo-Tartar to the left and the Tibeto-Indo-Chinese to the right, which is they're still the same people, just saying. From each of these springs an extra continental branch, the Mongolo-Tartar passing with the Eskimo to America. See, that's the scientific way, but there's another way. The Tibeto-Indo-Chinese with the Oceanic Mongols to the neighboring Indo-Pacific waters. Thenceforth, a relatively close connection is maintained between the various Tibeto-Indo-Chinese sub-branches, whereas the Mongolo-Tartar ramifications are not only far more numerous, but also develop more independent secondary branches. And it says, such as the Akkad, the Koryo-Japanese, and the Finno-Tartar, and the Mongol proper, some confined to the Asiatic mainland, others spreading eastward to the Japanese archipelago, others spreading eastwards to the Japanese archipelago, others spreading eastwards to the Japanese archipelago. Others spreading eastwards to the Japanese archipelago. Others spreading eastwards to the Japanese archipelago, or westwards far into Europe. Others spreading eastwards to the Japanese archipelago, or westwards from the Europe. I need to see. Continuing where I left off from, between the various Tibeto-Indo-Chinese and sub-branches, whereas the Mongolo-Tartar ramifications are not only far more numerous, but also develop more independent secondary branches, such as the Akkad, the Koryo-Japanese, the Finno-Tartar, and the Mongol proper. Some confined to the Asiatic mainland, others spreading eastwards to the Japanese archipelago, or westwards far into Europe. Europe, however, may be regarded as to some extent an ethnological, as it is altogether a geographical dependency of Asia. Thus, the whole of the northern section of the Eastern Hemisphere is seen to be largely occupied by Mongol or Mongoloid. They're still of the same. Mongoloid is like the family. Then you got Mongol. Then you got Tartar, Huns, Chinese. Just like when you say Negroid, then you got Negro. Some other crap that these Pan-Africans think is fucking different, but it really isn't. But it's like that. And it says the regions from which they are either partly or altogether excluded, being India, Irania, Arabia, North Africa, and West Europe. Such throughout the historic period has been the domain of the Mongol division, here and there modified from time to time by the vicissitudes of the circular struggle of ascendancy maintained with the conterminous Caucasic populations. And now we're going to continue to the next part real quick. All right, and this is the photos that's in the book. So they basically telling you what these people look like. Hey, who that look like? Who do that look like? The West Mongol type, the Kalmuk woman, or the however you say it. Come on now. That right there, that's a big cut. All right, let's move on to the next page. After that one, so continue off from right there. It says, for the Mongol division, the historic period dates from the earliest records of the Mesopotamian Akkadians, founders of the oldest known civilization in Babylonia. Here's some of the figures brought to light by M.D. Sarzik at Tel Lo sites of the ancient city of Lagash. All right, 4,000 to 2,500 BC. Now, they said those are Mongoloid. We know way back in those ancient days they were melanated people. Now, I got a separate lesson on where these pale-skinned Mongoloid people came from. I'm gonna bring that out in my Wild Man series, and I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be interesting. All right, but that's what they saying right there. It says shows distinctively Mongoloid traits of the prominent cheekbones, the aquiline eyes, and generally flat features, standing out in a marked contrast to the almost pure Semitic type of the later Assyrian epoch. We have also seen the Akkadian language shows a striking resemblance to Chinese, while most Akkad students are rather inclined to affiliate it either to the Finnic or to the Turkey branch of the Mongol Tatar linguistic family. And it says the reconciliation of these apparently contradictory views may be found in the now established fact, page 207, that Chinese was itself formerly polysyllabic, and may consequently have sprung from a common Tibeto-Mongol form of speech, of which Akkad is the earliest and nearest representative. If continued in this direction, Akkad studies may lead to a satisfactory solution of Tibeto-Mongol problem, and to the recovery of the primordial unity of the Mongolic division, which appears in our Mongol family tree to be split from prehistoric times into two great subdivisions. The expression Mongolo-Tartar applied to one of these subdivisions is perhaps too firmly established to be now set aside. But Mongolo-Turkic would certainly be preferable, though still not quite satisfactory, as seeing to exclude the Eskimo, which should always be included with these people, the Kyrilo-Japanese, and the Finnic groups. The expression Ural-Altaic has in recent years come into favor as a convenient alternative, and is certainly better than the misused and discredited Turanian. It is, of course, geographical, and like the analogous Indo-European, is defective, excluding large areas occupied by Mongoloid peoples of Mongolo-Tartar speech. Here, it will be used like Scots, Uighur, Altaic in the wildest sense, so as to embrace the whole region from Lapland to Japan exclusive, a region occupied by peoples of more or less homogeneous physical type, and now shown to speak idioms ultimately traceable to a common stock language. The great objection to Mongolo-Tartar lies in the fact that it is a tautological, both terms of the compound form being historically referable to Mongol peoples proper to the Tartar is wrongly taken as a synonymous with the Turkey. And it says no objection can be made to the first component, whether derived from Mong, which means brave, or from Mongol tribe, of which Genghis Khan was chief, and which in the 12th century was seated near the Kara Mountains north of the Gobi Desert. Well, we read there earlier, right, in another book, where it talks about that desert is where a majority of them come from. So I'm interested. Is there a tale of wild men coming from that desert? And I'm going to do my due diligence and see if there's such a thing. But it says, but Tartar, plural of Tata, Tata, was never the name of any section of the Turkey branch to which it is now collectively applied. It appears to be a Tungus or a Manchu word meaning either archer or nomad, and first occurring in Chinese records of the 9th century in reference to certain Mongol tribes, which were later driven by the Chitans southwards to the Inshan Mountains, about the great bend of the Huanghu River. Here, the predatory Mongols and Tartars, all closely related members of the Mongol group proper, were welded into the nation by Genghis Khan, a Mongol on his father's side and a Tatar on his mother's. That Tartar became dominant in the West was largely due to the fact that the Tartars generally formed the van of Mongol expeditions. Westwards, at an early date, Tartar took the form Tartar by association with the Tartarus of classic mythology, as in the letter 1241 of Louis, I believe that's the 6th, to Queen Blanche. Thus, it happened that Tartar or Tartar, they both Tartar or Tatar. Yeah, there we go. Generally, the name of the Mongolian tribe was generally transformed to the Western group, whose proper name always has been still as Turkey. Though, in many places ruled by Khans, of rural or pretended Mongol descent, the powerful Kipchak Empire, founded by Batu, not Bantu, but Batu Khan, grandson of Genghis, was mainly inhabited by the Cumans, the Pinchinich, something like that, and other Turkey peoples. And when the empire was broken into fragments, each section still continued to be ruled by Tatar Khans, to be called the Tatar Khanate. Thus originated the expression Siberian Tartars, Kazan and Astarkhan, and Krim, which is the Crimean, and other Tatars. That is, Turkey's people ruled by Tatar prince of Genghis Khan's dynasty, but the peoples themselves have been always disclaimed the name of Tatar, calling themselves in their language Turkey. Okay, so you can see there's basically something that is they are both similar. The Tatar and the Tartar, Turkey, they still of Mongol descent. The Khans, and the Khans spread it to America. So again, is the Khans in America really Americans? I know some of us that is conscious in the American Indian family, y'all call yourself Amarukans or Amarukans. Is the Khan, do they originate from China? Does that originate from Mongolia, from the Tartar people or the Tatar people? does it originate? Do they really belong to us? Or was we invaded? Some people got an ideology and believe that we were connected. I've seen on some maps that we were connected in some sense, and comes trading back and forth. And that will come the adoption of the word Khan as well. Or maybe it was a general um, word for king entirely in America and also in Asia as well. Who knows? I have not figured that out. But as I can see, the Mongols have invaded America. So there's a great possibility that the word Khan came from them as well through their invasion. But I digress. Let's move on. The Turkey type, originally Mongolic, had at an early period been profoundly modified in many places, and especially in the north by contact with peoples of Caucasian race, whence the frequent mention of red hair, green eyes, and white complexion in the early Chinese records by some ethnologists. These modifications have been attributed to intermingling with Ugarians, which is Siberians, Finns, the Finnish race, itself being regarded as originally not Mongolic but Caucasian. So there you go. So to you wild Indians, and you know who you are. They'll go around calling Native Americans Siberians. The original Siberians did not look like them. I'm breaking this down so you can call them what they really are. Know what I'm saying? But they not even the original Siberians, so they even took their identity. But I digress. Let's go. D. Quadrifagus habitually calls them white Alaphilians. Many of the European Finns, and especially the Baltic group, have undoubtedly been a large assimilated to the surrounding populations, although even these retain certain physical and mental characters, such as perky eyes, somewhat flat face, round head, dull soul and temperament, which combined with their pure Ural Altic speech, betrayed their primordial Mongol infinities. These infinities became more marked in the direction with west to east until the Somoyedis and the Soyotes and other Finns of Siberia, true home of the race, show all the characters of the Mongolic type, often in an exaggerated form. Now, everybody know that the Moors got the wild man out the subterranean region. The subterranean region is the underground, the caves, that type of stuff. So when these people got out, they went to Siberia and they intermingled, or they intermingled with the particular wild type of person there too, and spun this new type of individual. Or they literally intermingled with the people of their region and the Mongol type people of their region and created these type of individuals. But this is getting quite interesting. It's getting quite interesting. All right. So right here, we have a Mongolic a type right here. And this describes it up here. It says true Mongolic eye fold in all the characteristics: short nose, prominent molar bones, and flat features, low stature, scarcely exceeding 5 feet or 2 inches. Lank dark hair ranging from a deep chestnut to black. And it says distinctively round head. See, they can get black too, so this will be considered a Negroid type. And it says round head. All right, and it says although the southern neighbors of the Ugarian Mongols and the Ost-Yoks, the Otoks or something like that, present some marked differences, especially in their lighter complexion. All right. Okay, so we continuing. It says chestnut, whereas the Lebanese time it is normally black. So they're talking about the hair. This rapid modification of the marked physical character attributed by the writers definitely to crossing the fair-haired Scandinavians is shown by Sumar to be more probably due to alliances with the blonde Quines, that is Finnish immigrants into Lapland. But whatever be the case, the fact is important as illustrating the analogous changes by which is the course of ages. The Baltic Finns themselves have been largely assimilated in appearance to the average European. So this right here is another pictures, some more pictures of what these Mongoloid people looks like. Okay, you see, especially this guy right here. You already know. All right, here we are continuing later on in the book. The Koreans. It says the common descent is also clearly perceptible in some of the physical features of the Korea-Japanese groups. The Koreans, who take up an immediate position between the continental and insular Mongoloid peoples, are somewhat taller and more robust, with much lighter complexion and far more regular features than the average Mongols. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump on down. And now they talk about the Japanese. The Japanese neighboring are the outcome of a more complex interminglings. According to the national traditions, they arrived from the south and southwest and gradually spread over the archipelago, driving the Caucasian and New Aborigines, northwards to the Yezu, and no doubt here in the mixing with them, though nowhere to many considerable extent. Some appear to have arrived from the southern Malay lands, Formosa, and the Philippines, while others may have come from Polynesia, but there was nowhere any evidence of the black Negrito element that has been spoken of, and all the evidence points to Korea as the original home of the great majority, and especially of the dominant classes. All right, so we can stop it right there. We can go back and look at these photos though. So this is what they look like. You notice how they talk about the Negritos and the real original people of those lands. But it's crazy how they say the Caucasian Aboriginals. What the Caucasian, Caucasian, New Aborigines. Now I know there's a photo of a real Caucasians who are melanated, Negroid type, but we don't know where they at. They probably still there, and they just out there calling them something different. But this is the Mongol type. Like, look at it. Come on now, the Japanese woman. Okay, let's go. And if you want to read this for yourself, it talks about the complexion. We can read a little bit of it. It says the complexion is sallow. That's the same complexion of the Native American sallow, or dirty olive yellow. And it says, but it is curious how the face complexion of these people differs from the body complexion. In the course of 2 visits to Japan, in which I traveled much of in various parts of the country, I saw many hundreds of naked Japanese, the bathing of both sexes in company being at the time the rule. I was struck particularly with the fact that despite of their sallow or yellowish complexions, their bodies were whiter than those of the Englishmen or even English women. The Chinamen, however, strips yellowish. The Koreans are notably taller than the Japanese, and it is on the islands of the Tsushima and Ikai, in which Korean blood predominates, that the height of the men averages on inch more than of the main islands, Hondo. Okay, so they describing the different type of Mongoloid type people, their height and stuff like that. So you're starting to understand what ethnology is, right? They all the same, but they are different in many aspects. Okay. Formerly, the expression Hyperboreans was collectively applied to the Chukchi and Koryaks and other Arctic peoples of northeast Siberia, who were supposed to form a homogeneous group with the Eskimos dwelling under corresponding high latitudes in the New World. But if they ever possess an ethical unity, the Asiatic and the American branches of this group now stand as widely apart from each other as both do from original Mongolo-Tatar Tatar stock. In our family tree, the divergence is shown in the bow to the extreme left, where the Eskimo are seen to occupy a branch by themselves, breaking away from the other members of the group soon after the common severance from the Mongolo-Tartar connection. Again, if these people are mixing together and not mixing with no other people, how the hell they broke away from the family? So this is the author trying to make his little spin on what possibly could have happened. But just because you went to another continent don't mean you're not of those same people. Just being real, you're still of those same people. Know what I'm saying? But I digress. Let's continue. The Chukchi, typical Asiatic Hyperboreans, are scattered in small groups along the shores of the frozen ocean between the Kalima River and the Bering Strait, reaching islands as far as the Endar Basin. They were first carefully studied by the members of the, I'm not even finna butcher that, expedition, who described them as tall, lean, and somewhat irregular features and fair complexion, whence they are classed by the Quadrotraphagus with his allophilian whites, although W.H. Dahl speaks of their coppery ting. All right, coppery ting, but they're white. They got like a little ting to them. But it says, but the statements on this and other points are conflicting, owing to the presence in their domain of true Eskimo. All right. It says, with whom some observers have confused them. The Chukchi appear, however, to differ altogether from the Eskimo in speech, in a distinctively the birchy-cephalous shape of the head and their light complexion. And it says, these characters seem to be explained by the statement of J. Bove that they came originally from Amar region, and finding the country occupied by the Koryaks and the Onkillans, they drove the former south beyond the Anadar, and partly merged with the latter, partly compelled them to cross the frozen river. And it says the solution of the Chukchi problem, which has been so much discussed, seems therefore to be that they are originally of the Manchu or the Tungus people of whom, wait a minute, of the Tungus people who some centuries ago settled on the northeast sea. So we're going to move on to the next page real quick. Let's go on. All right, so this right here are more of the features of the Mongoloid type people. You will see these type of people in the islands, right? So you see the wide eyes ones, you see the ones that slanted. All right, you see that? So it don't just have one look. So here he is, and we on the next page right here. It says the Tibetans can certainly be at once distinguished from the Shuns, the Annamisi, from Barmans or Chinese. And it says, but all alike are recognized as not merely Mongoloid, but distinctively Mongolic. I don't know why they try to make a separation between the two, but they still are the Mongoloid families. They still all Mongoloid peoples. All right, Mongolic peoples. And no question raised is to their descent from a common Mongol ancestor. Thus, a yellowish complexion, narrow slant eyes, small nose, literally prominent molar bones, black lank hair, and short stature are universally prevalent, and these find in a combination surface to constitute a true Mongol type. Now, look at her, right? Like I said, they have different types. Man, look at it. the way her head shaped. But they got many types, many variations of the Mongol type. So yeah, you know, this is a Chinese woman. They telling you her tribe, Kulja. Okay, you see? Let's move on. The Berens Nation. Under the head, we include a number of North Asiatic and American tribes, which for the most part either inhabit the shores of the Bering Straits or have migrated like the Eskimos from its shores to Greenland. The name of the Hyperborean Mongols, which Latham employed, is inapplicable to this group, as we mean it to include nations as far as the Straits of Huon, D. Fuca. Only some of the tribes are united by a common type of language. The physical characters are more satisfactory, for they form a transition from Mongol-like Siberians to the Aborigines of America. How? Who was here for you to make a transition? Who did you mix with? Somebody had to have been here way before you came here for you to make a transition to an Aborigines of America. Someone had to be here for you to mix with, for your language to change. All right. And it says this transition justifies our intention of not separating the Americas as a distinct race, but connecting them with the Mongolian Asiatics. All the people named have reddish or brownish, darkish colored skin, stiff cylindrical hair, and with one exception, no beard. Scarcely any hair on the rest of their body. Now, again, I told y'all on many accounts, America is very diversified. There's melanated people here. There's Negroid type people here. There's Negroid Mongolians, whether y'all know it or not, which I'm going to be showing y'all in this long presentation. But these people have came here. They did intermingle. When they came here, they was melanated, and somehow they had became pale. But this is the author's thoughts on it. But yes, brownish, darkish colored people. There's people with cylinder hair. There's people that had woolly hair too. I'm gonna show y'all that. And there's people that have the wavy, coarse hair that's long. And then you got your Asiatic Mongol type. Know what I'm saying? But I digress. Let's go to the next page. All right, continuing on again. This is the Namalo in the Eskimo, quite at the northeastern corner of Asia, on the Bering Straits, along the frozen ocean, the Tushukshi border of the Namalo, with whom they are formally confused. They differ little from their neighbors in manners and habits. The Lutki, notice their well-marked Mongolian features, prominent cheekbones, small noses, and frequently obliquely set eyes. We also know that the Namalo language is allied to the Eskimo. Chamoso, who had an opportunity of comparing the Namalo of the Gulf of St. Lawrence with the Eskimo and Kot Zebu sound, observes that the population of the northeast point of Asia, as well as all Americans from Bering Strait to the Eskimo of Baffin's Bay, belong to the same race of men with a conspicuously Mongolian form of face, the Eskimo. The Eskimo is greater than the breadth, and other points in the Inuit exactly resemble the northern Asiatic populations in physical characters, especially in skin and hair. The oblique setting of the eyes and the broad flat faces are recognized even in the Eskimo of Greenland, although intermixtures with German blood have frequently taken place there. The Namalo and Eskimo are not tall people, but we have already contradicted the old and erroneous statements as to their dwarfish size. The women are not prolific, or rather productiveness is considered undesirable, so that this race also will not escape extinction. But the proof that the Aborigines of America took this road consisted in their Mongoloid characters. In the last chapter, it was shown that the Asiatic and American tribes of Bering Straits are so much alike as to be mistaken for one another. So if you see them both, you can't tell the difference between the Mongoloid and a Native American. All right. And it says in the United States, even adherents of the doctrine of the polarity of the human species have admitted that all the Aborigines of America resemble each other as much as full-blooded Jews, and that the Mongolian is the only race which they can properly be closely connected. Okay? And it says A. von Humboldt moreover attributes to the natives of Mexico all the Mongolian characters, with the sole exception of the nose, even the obliquely set eyes, which latter peculiarity he also ascribes to the Chima in the northeast of Venezuela. The obliquely set eyes and the prominent cheekbones of the inhabitants of Veragua were noticed by Moritz Wagner. And according to his description, out of 4 Boyano Indians from Darien, 3 had Mongolian features, including the flattened nose. James Orden, the traveler who was also struck by the likeness of the Zaparo of the Napo River east of the Cordilleras Quito to the Chinese. All right, so y'all see right here, they are literally comparing the Mongolian-like people here to the Mongolians. I'm sorry for the bit of hiccups in some of my pronunciations in some of these words, but we all looking at the same thing. You can get the understanding, right? So let's move on to the next page, all right? That their features vividly reminded him of the Chinese. Now, look, this one finna get crazy. Burton describes the Brazilian natives that falls into the Kachui as having thick, round, Kolimuk heads, flat Mongol faces, wide, very prominent cheekbones, oblique and sometimes narrow slant Chinese eyes, a slight mustachios, like you look like you Chinese and you got that Genghis Khan mustache. Another traveler, J.J. Vaughn, declares in so many words that he has seen Chinese whom at the first glance he mistook for the Batukudos, and that since then he has been convinced that the American race ought not to be separated from the Mongolians. So when he seen this tribe right here, he never been the same since when it came down to the Native Americans, right? His predecessor, Saint Hilaire, noticed narrow, obliquely set eyes and broad noses among Malalai, Brazil. Says that the Coroados, that their features are of a Mongoloid type, due especially to the premises of the cheekbones, but that oblique position of the eyes is not perceptible. Yet the oblique opening of the eyes, which forms a good though not essential characteristic of the Mongoloid nations, is said to be the characteristic of all of the tribes of Brazil. Even in the extreme south, among the Hyuliticchis of Patagonia, King saw a great many with obliquely set eyes. All right. It says those writers who separate the Americans as a peculiar race fail to give a distinctive characters common to them all, which distinguish them from the Asiatic Mongols. Hello, my fellow tribe. That will cover part 1 of who is the Mongols and what did the Mongols do, and ethnology behind them. So you learn that they are the Huns, the Turks, the Chinese, the people that happened to go by desert. They also the new Siberians of today, how some of the ancient Babylonians. What else? They also the Eskimo family, various families of North America and South America and Mexico as well. You will see the Mongoloid type people damn near everywhere, even amongst Negroid type peoples too. So in the next part, you're gonna learn a lot more about the Mongolians. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you for watching, and tune in next time.